That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
So welcome to this talk where we're giving you a sneak peek into our optimization training workshop and then also into our migrating to the latest Unity workshop. We're going to give you a sneak peek of what those look like, how we at Unity approach learning, and then give you a little bit of idea what is going to be entailed into those workshops. So my name is Joshua Kinney. I'm the Master Trainer for the Americas at Unity Technologies. My background is in teaching. I've been a teacher for over 10 years. I taught in the classroom, and then I also moved to an online platform. Some of you may know Digital Tutors or Pluralsight. I started out at Digital Tutors as an instructor for game design, game programming, and game art. And then Digital Tutors was bought by Pluralsight a few years back, and I was the game development curriculum manager there. Where I designed swords and shovels and then also created the curriculum along with that. So enough about myself. Let's get right into what we're here to see. So we're going to be looking at two different workshops today, and then we're really going to present to you how our workshops are very different than the typical workshops that you've been in the past. So let's take a look at the overall agenda just to give you that. And then we'll have some next steps after this where you can inquire about what these training workshops are, how you can get involved with them, and possibly bringing me to your company. So some common training pitfalls. Typically, whenever you get into some sort of training workshop, we've all been there before where there is just someone spitting out information. And I like to think of that as, well, we could say, trying to throw you-know-what up against a wall and hoping that it sticks, right? And luckily for you all, when you're the learners, somebody's trying to throw all of that at you. And so that just creates this sense of trying to digest all of the information, and you're not really able to do anything with it. Another type of training workshop that you may be in as well is where you're all working on the same project and you all get the same outcomes. But what we want to do is we want to create a motivating session, training workshop to where we present you with a series of problems, we show you the concepts, and then we allow you to experiment and to create along with that. So our workshops are most of all motivating. We want to create problems for you that you are most interested in. Everyone here is interested in the optimization workshop. Everyone wants to know more about this particular topic. And so whenever you're in our training workshops, we're not talking about anything other than that specific subject. And we go really, really deep into those subjects. Now, along with that, it's not just me talking at you and giving you that information. I give you the concepts, give you the tools that you need, and then allow you to experiment most of the way through the training process. And then with all of that, again, those engaging projects that you get to work in. Now, we don't leave you with just the information each time you come into a training workshop. We give you resources that you can utilize throughout your training endeavors. So we always give you a participant ebook, which allows you to go back. It's like notes that we've already prepared and given to you, so that way you can go back and you could figure out, okay, that's how that thing was done. And then there's also our Unity Connect community where everyone can start learning together. So whenever you enjoy one of our workshops, you get to be in a group with me and then the other learners, and you can learn from one another. So let's talk about planning for top performance. Out of any of that, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask about how we approach learning? Now, if you're wondering about that photo of that monkey, the boredest monkey of all time, my grandmother and I, we went to the hot springs there, and I thought that she would really like it. She's like 80 years old, and thought that she would really love it. But in that photo, she just looks really, really bored, right? I'm just kidding. I just totally made that up. So with our optimization techniques, optimization is one of the most sought after topics with Unity. We want to know how to get our projects to run faster. We want them to run efficiently. We want to learn how to create efficient code, how to build faster graphics or physics, how to create stunning graphics and get everything that we want out of our projects. And so these are some of the common needs that you might have in your optimization projects. So with this, you can see some of the different areas that you're going to be working in the optimization techniques workshop. So we'll talk about the tools, but the tools are great. You've probably experienced a lot of the tools already, like the profiler. You may have looked at the memory profiler as well as the frame debugger, just to name a couple. But what really is great about this particular workshop is the workflow, the story behind that. So with the optimization workflows, you get to gather the data using the profiler, analyzing the results of that, identifying what the actual issue is and getting down to the root cause, and then actually making a change. And we create this methodical approach to optimizing your problems. And then there are various other areas that we're going to look at into this particular workshop, like batching, rendering paths, lighting and shadows, post-processing stack, and how not to check everything in those. And then also your platform-specific debugging as well. So, because we understand that not everyone is developing for the PC or the console, there are going to be some hardware limitations, and so we want to approach those as well. So let's take a look at a demo that we have here. And this particular project is a nightmare. It has all kinds of things happening. As you can see, there are post-processing, the post-processing, that is the hardest word for me to say out of all of my workshops. Post-processing stack results, you can see all of those on there. We have lots of particles. We can come in and we can play, and we get some physics. There's tons of enemies in here as well. And you can see it's running okay, but it really could be better. So looking at this particular workshop, what I tend to do with this is I give you the problems. We investigate what those issues are and how you can apply those to your own problems. So let's go ahead and bring up the profiler. We want to gather data first because we're talking about that profile or that particular workflow. Gathering the data is really, really easy inside of the profiler. We just bring it up. You may have used it in the past, but it's a really, really great tool to get insight into what is happening. So when that profiler comes up, we get to see all of these different colors and all of these different numbers and some of this code that we see. And we might be a little confused by that, but if we break it down and we use this workflow that we're talking about, things become much easier. So to just get started here, let's look at maybe one of these spikes here. Let's take a look at that. We get lots of information. So we've gathered our data, and now we need to analyze what the results actually are. And so I get to come in and I can see, all right, what's this top thing here? This is taking up 30% or 37% of the total resources that I have here in this particular frame. So I can start to drill down and look at the behavior update, and we have some sort of script that is being called every single frame. And so I can begin to drill down into that, and not only just analyzing the results, but now I can focus in on what the actual root cause of the problem is. Now in this workshop, we're not just talking about the profiler tool. It is really great, but what's really great about our workshop is we're also looking at some of the common pitfalls that you don't necessarily see inside of the profiler or some of these tools. So just to give you a quick example, someone in this particular project put all of these bananas in this scene. And these particular bananas, right now they don't really seem like they're causing much of a problem, but as you can see, someone got lazy about set dressing and put a bunch of physics on them. So they have rigid bodies all over them, and there are not just one instance of these groups of bananas, but there are several instances of these groups of bananas. Now, typically what happens in your workshops is someone just made a very common mistake. They wanted to make set dressing fast and easy, but forgot to take it out. We'll talk about lots of these pitfalls that happen. What are some of the things that you can do with your import settings? How can you make your games faster that way, your files faster, your files smaller? We'll take a look at those in this workshop. So with that, does anyone have any questions about optimization? You can ask me any question about optimization if you like. Yes?
So one of the issues that we run into is when you have like a fixed frame update versus like a, the visual frame update.
Mm-hmm.
And if you optimize the fixed frame update, sometimes you can get a whole bunch of them if the visual frame's too slow. So it looks like it's doing more work and it's the problem, but it's not necessarily the problem. Like how do you figure out when it's really a problem or when it's just like, oh, my visual frame's taking so long to render that I run like 200 of these?
Yeah, so that particular thing is going to be like trial and error. So that's going to come into contact with those common pitfalls that we're talking about. Yeah, you're going to have to kind of play with those with your time manager and all of that. Unfortunately not. So just to tell you a really cool story, I had a gentleman come to me yesterday about some optimization problems, and we have to think about what do we actually need in our projects, and what are some things that we can work around, and how can we work through those. And this particular gentleman brought in a scene that had thousands of buildings in it, and it ran okay. But whenever we got to that view, it started to chug when there were just tons and tons of buildings in it. And the issue is that they needed to have unique instances of every single building, because it was highly detailed. And so we have to work through those things and try to figure out what's the give and take with optimization in that. So yeah, sometimes we have to kind of tweak things and test it out. So in that workflow, it's always gather the data, figure out what's wrong, make a change, see if it's positive. If not, or if it is, keep going. If it's not, maybe revert back to look at something else. And we talk about that workflow constantly throughout this. Yes?
So we had someone from Unity come to the mixed reality lab to teach or whatever, and I had seen, and it was, like, everything was fine, but then I put in this, like, one check, and all of a sudden the frame rate drops, like, big time. And I showed it to him, and he was able to say, oh yeah, you should store a reference over here, and this debug line is just really costly. And I asked him, is there some source, like, is it really just tribal knowledge, or is there some place where they say, hey, just stay away from, like, the pitfalls? Are those written someplace?
Not written someplace, unfortunately, because the thing is that with optimization, we're all finding that we all have different problems, and it could be just a multitude of things. And so whenever we run into them, I can guarantee you that there was a day where that solutions engineer did not know that until the problem came about, and then was able to share that later. So yeah, unfortunately, maybe that's something we could think about, is getting a doc together.
The profiler, make it more obvious that it's like, instead of drilling down into that code, it was literally a one-line thing, just putting it into different spots.
Yeah, there are lots of things, like the animators can eat up resources. Your game object hierarchy are things that can eat up resources, and we'll talk about all of those different things in this particular workshop. All right, so who saw the keynote, Unity keynote this year? Saw a little bit of it? What was your favorite feature that you've seen so far that's coming?
Nested prefabs.
Nested prefabs. I think there seems to have been some sort of mob around nested prefabs, and we finally listened after years. What else? Any other ones?
There was one, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was about making your app, your game run better depending on the hardware that it was on. I don't know what exactly specifically.
Make your app.
So yeah, I was just emphasizing that. It might have had to do with
That looks awesome. So we know that 2018 is coming up very soon, and we want to create a workshop for everyone to where, let's say that you are wrapping up a project and you're thinking about moving to Unity 2018, or maybe you've just started and you want to go ahead and just make that switch, or perhaps there's just a feature that you can't live without and you want to migrate over to that latest version of Unity. And so with this particular workshop, we're going to talk about lots of different things. Again, the common needs are things like build management, where the Unity Hub comes in handy with that. Custom materials, because we're not all shader programmers, right? Who's a shader developer in here? Okay, so 1% of the audience here is a shader developer. We have, and it's not really 1%, it's just quick math, one person. Smooth project migration, all of these things are things that we've run into whenever we migrate to a new version of Unity. I know as a Unity developer, there have been times where I have looked back and said, oh man, I really wish I hadn't have done that, migrating to the next version, but I really needed that feature. So what we're going to do in this particular workshop is really figure out what is the best way to do that, and looking at the great features of 2018. So in your managing project migration, things like working with your code paths, how to get those set up properly, your lighting paths, so your post-processing and performance, and then obviously those key features. So your asset manager, your Unity Hub, Pro Builder is one of my favorite key features. The scriptable rendering pipeline, I'm really, really looking forward to it and having a lot of fun with that. And then obviously the shader graph is another one that is really important to folks. And then we have project templates. So now that we have these new scriptable rendering pipelines, we want to make it just really easy to start up a new project using one of these pipelines and getting going with that. And then we have our project migration assessment. So if you have asset bundles and things like that, you want to be able to access those, look at them, inspect them, and make sure that they're ready to go inside of 2018. So let's take a look at a project that was built in Unity 5.6. And let's take a look at it. So this was built in Unity 5.6. I literally opened it, and then it started going through the process and fixing a lot of our problems for us. There are some great tools in there. So if you have things like your post-processing stack, maybe you're using a different version than what is currently in 2018, there's a great tool that you can just update it. Same thing with TextMesh Pro, if you have that in your project as well. Now, some of the really cool features that we have with this particular version of Unity is obviously Pro Builder. And you can see here we built a single building very, very quickly just to be able to show you that that is in use in 2018. Now, Pro Builder is a really great tool for prototyping, and so we can get started prototyping games really quick, looking at level design, and in this case, we could even texture this building a little bit more to make it a little more familiar with the area and work with that. And then obviously we have the shader graph too. I love the shader graph. I love the node-based workflow. I've been working with it extensively recently, and it's very, very, very fast. So just to kind of show you one of these projects here, let's take a look at the shader graph. So the shader graph, I can create a shader very, very easy. I'm just going to go into my shaders folder, and I'm going to right-click and create shader, and then PBR graph. And so this is going to bring up our shader graph interface, and I'm just going to call this test. And then all we do is double click on that and open it right inside of Unity. And so we can get in and we can start adding nodes in and creating the particular shaders that we're looking for. Now, in the past, you may have seen with maybe some of our competitors that there is a similar kind of process for this. And we have things like building individual unique materials, but then you could also create shaders that can be utilized across multiple materials. So for example, let's say that I wanted to create something like a simple extended PBR material with maybe like an RMA. So like it has a roughness, metallic, and the ambient occlusion map all built into it. We could do this very easy. We could start creating our nodes, and we can add in, let's say, textures. Start searching that way. And then it's very easy to just go ahead and start hooking those in, making those changes. And what's really cool is I can go ahead and I can create something that's very unique per the object that I have, but then I could also create the shader in such a way to where it could be used across multiple objects. So all I have to do is actually input just the texture itself. So I can add, in this case, a property, and I can add it as a texture. So I can say, all right, this is going to be my albedo for this particular shader. It can be used across multiple objects. I'm going to drag and drop that in, and then I can just pop that right into here. Now what's really cool is whenever I save this as an asset and then add it to a material, let me go ahead and create a material really quickly, but not inside of my scripts folder. And what's really cool is I can pop that in, and materials always, I don't know about you guys, in this menu, I always lose it, and it's always in the middle. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it that for now. And then I can just select my material and then go to Graphs, and there is my test that I just created. And then I have the ability to drag and drop any texture that I want on there. Now there are tons and tons of properties there, not just textures, but you can use color, and you can modify it however you need. So with that, any other features that you're really excited about? Maybe you want to take a look at those. Pro Builder, perhaps? You want to take a look at Pro Builder? Yeah. So like we said here, we have this building here that was created inside of Pro Builder. The package manager, so with all of these great tools, the package manager is going to be really helpful for us. So I can bring it up, and let me just make sure that I have Pro Builder installed here. So inside of my project, you can see the package manager, and there is Pro Builder. No need to go to the asset store, download it, and then import it. I could just say, all right, here. Now with the package manager as well, I can go ahead and say all, and I get an entire list. So in this particular one, I don't have post-processing or Cinema Machine. All I have to do is select it and then hit install, and it brings it right in. So no more going to multiple places trying to get things. So Pro Builder is installed here. And so with this, I can go ahead and begin to work inside of Pro Builder right here natively inside of Unity. And so I can do things like extending edges and polygons and modeling out my shapes. Yes. All right, so like we said, Pro Builder is great for prototyping. It's great for even building things out very, very simply. They can be used. You can apply materials to them, and you can use them in your own projects. And you can leave them in there if you like. And then also, whenever these upgrade, there is a tool in there to allow it to upgrade as well. All right, so looking at that, we've talked about migrating our project. Any other questions about in-training workshops? Now, I know that this particular style where we're talking, it's just me talking at you, so that's kind of that first type of lecture where we're talking about just throwing up information. But in our workshops, you have it right there in front of you. I'm just leading and kind of leading you through, showing you some of the problems and allowing you to work along with that. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all for being here. We're really excited to be able to come to your place of business, or perhaps even offer some sort of training workshop with you and groups. If you have any other questions, you want to get inside into some of this training workshop, we have some BDs here that you can talk to. You can also get with me, and we can get that information to you. Thank you.